setting the bar high. Let's bring my guy Tone in.
Big Sills.
Gotta love Jerry opening up his pie hole, don't you, man?
The way I see it, it's funny. He says it goes through San Francisco. Well, at least we know it's not going through Dallas. I'll tell you that.
Oh man, dude, San Francisco's gonna kick the shit out of that team. I'm sorry, they're just more physical.
It's going to be entertaining, man. I'm really looking forward to that matchup because we're seeing Brock Purdy play at a level that we didn't really think was possible, and he's doing it on a consistent basis. He's playing within that offense. He's not hurting them, and I think that's what's most important about that San Francisco team. He's not hurting them, and that defense is just playing lights out, man. That defense is so talented on all three levels, man. It's just when you're not playing the quarterback position, you're able to build a defense like that. The Cowboys are always going to be a threat, and I'm always going to respect the Dallas Cowboys from the perspective of they typically win against the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm always going to respect my divisional opponents, so it's going to be really entertaining to see how it turns out.
I definitely would take Jeffrey Lurie in a fight over Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones right now is in the same shape that Joe Biden's in, so I'll leave it at that.
Lord have mercy.
LJ, do you think it's been an upgrade, though, Jalen Carter versus Javon Hargrave? Put the money in it, too.
Of course. You know what? I have to call it an upgrade because these are the kind of moves that GMs win executive of the year for. You know what I mean? When you had the opportunity, when free agency comes and you have a guy of Javon Hargrave's caliber, and he's coming off of his best year, it's really easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of bringing that guy back. It's really easy to get caught up in how sexy those stats are, and you kind of feel compelled to re-sign a guy like that. But a guy like Harry Roseman, he trusts his process. He knows how to stand pat, and he doesn't get caught up in the whirlwind. Instead, what he does? He brings in a guy like Jalen Carter. I don't know how the NFL let that happen, but it happened, and he brought in Jalen Carter. Sure, Javon Hargrave, and I said this to you in the private chat, Javon Hargrave may have the sacks. I think he has about 3 or 4 in the season. But when you really think about it, those are just 4 plays that he made, right? 4 sacks, 4 plays that he made. When it comes to Jalen Carter, he's up there with the best of them in pressures. I think he's ranked first or second in pressures amongst DTs. He's right behind Aaron Donald, and he's playing significantly less snaps. That's another thing to keep in mind as well. The starters are Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis. Jalen Carter is the one that's rotating in. So when you put all that into perspective, and on top of that, the running game has significantly improved. It didn't just get better. It's night and day. On top of that, Jordan Davis is playing the best football that we thought he could play. He's bouncing off of Jalen Carter perfectly. He's healthy. Fletcher Cox looks like a man on a mission. I honestly think Jalen Carter was an upgrade over Javon Hargrave for all those reasons I mentioned.
Is it me also? Jerry Jones is starting to look like the guy from Poltergeist. I mean, the guy that knocked on the door.
Let me in.
I mean, it's kind of like a resemblance there to that there. All right, let me go back to the first hour and get your take on.
Right.
Tell me your evaluation on Jalen Hurts here.
I think he's being held back.
For the first month.
I think he's being held back. I feel like I'm seeing a guy who's thinking more. I see a guy out there who's thinking rather than playing instinctually. If I had to put a grade on it, and look, before I give the grade, right, I want Eagles fans to understand this. A guy like Jalen Hurts, the standard he holds himself to, we would never be able to comprehend it. So when we're critical of Jalen Hurts or when we say certain things about him, you got to understand whatever we're saying, whatever he's saying to himself is 10 times worse.
Don't you think in our evaluation tone, because I never thought about putting it out like that maybe it's not my take. Maybe it's what I think he thinks out of how he's playing also, plus my evaluation, because there's no way he thinks he's playing really well, right? I think he probably thinks he's playing. I don't want to jade your take here, but I'm just saying, I think I never thought of it that way, that I'm also adding as a former professional player, how they look at their own game.
Exactly. Let's be totally honest. Excuse my French, but Jalen Hurts doesn't want you to kiss his ass. That's not even the kind of player he is. So, when Jalen Hurts shows you what he showed you in 2022, right? He became the starter officially in 2021, went 9-8 as a team, made the playoffs, followed that up in 2022, even when the league had film on him from 2021. I think that's a concept that doesn't get talked about enough. They had film on him in 2021, but he elevated his game to a point in 2022 that they didn't anticipate, which forced them to respond in 2023. So in a roundabout way, Jalen Hurts right now, in my humble opinion, first month of football through 4 games, I think he's playing C+ football. And I'm being honest. And you guys see me. I have a Hurts season hat on. I got Hurts right there in the back, right there, him and Smitty on the poster. Like I'm a Jalen Hurts guy through and through. But the way I'm watching this football game, but I don't think that C+ grade belongs to him alone. I think that C grade belongs to Brian Johnson. It belongs to Nick Sirianni. This offense is in my opinion, is lacking a certain level of creativity. If you ask me, I feel like too often they're relying on the A.J. Brown bomb to bail them out. They need to be more creative and intermediate. That's what's missing from this offense.
I think they're too predictable. And what I said in the first hour, what's your take on that? I think this guy's struggling with all the pieces around him, because in the offenses maybe that he's been a coordinator to, very seldom. I mean, and that's why you see the lack of Goddard. And because he's so new at it, Tone, what you got these experienced defensive coordinators throwing new looks at a new coordinator. And what you're doing is, in the background, you're also telling Hurts to do those predetermined slides. You're taking a little bit away in the apprehension on the run game away. And that's why I think you're saying it's almost like Jalen's late. You know what I mean? He just doesn't seem like he was always ahead of the sticks and ahead of the play. It just seems like there's a flinch or a pause in almost everything they're doing.
Hey, listen. Remember, how you always bring up that 3rd and 11, right, where he broke the Washington Commanders back, right? Didn't he look faster on that play? He looked faster.
I want to take what you said. I think he just said, "Hey, screw it, I'm going to get this bitch."
He looked faster, and every other play besides that, every game prior to that, we've all been saying, doesn't he look slower? What's going on? He looks like he's thinking out there. On that 3rd and 11, he looked faster. You want to know why? Because he made his mind up. And Jalen Hurts is better when he's a better quarterback when you allow him to do him. In the offseason, I talked about, maybe we need him to run less, right? And I've really been thinking about this. And after seeing these first 4 games, I want Jalen Hurts to be Jalen Hurts. I'll admit it. I was one of those people where I said I want him to run a little less, 170 carries. I'm not comfortable with it. Right now, he's on pace for about 120, 130. So that's okay. But after watching these first 4 games, my opinion has changed from the offseason. I want Jalen Hurts to go out there and do him. Whatever happens, happens.
I'm going to say this to you about this matchup on Sunday here. Of course, Eagles have a better roster, but they don't have a better roster of coaches. My fear going into this game is coaching and coaching in-game decisions, because you got Raheem Morris. You've got one of the greatest defensive football players in the history of the NFL lining up over a position that has been a negative in that offense, that right guard position, and he's lining up over that position. Whoever that is not going to be able to deal. You're going to have to get a lot of help from Kelsey and down blocks from Lane for that to be a fact. You're going to have to look at 99, and you're going to have to circle that guy on the chalkboard. Plus, you have Sean McVay. We talked about this yesterday, one of the best innovative play callers, head coaches, because what I love about what he does, and for some reason in Philly, they don't do this. Sean has nothing to do with the defense. Like, there's 2 head coaches in Los Angeles. Raheem Morris is he's the defensive head coach. That's his decision on what they do. Les Snead and Kevin Demoff have told me that. That's why he hired Wade Phillips back in the day. Wade, it's your show. You tell us what we need. We'll tell you how we are looking at it and evaluating you. His job is to evaluate Raheem, not to coach Raheem. And that's why Raheem has the 9th best defense in the NFL right now, with pieces that I was kind of shocked that they're doing so well on.
Right.
And they've got a better win right now on the ledger, Tone, with that Seahawks win on the road up there than the Eagles do. Matthew Stafford, all those coaches, plus that wide receiver group, this is going to be, how about this? This is going to be an interesting ball game.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to watch, because I believe the Rams just activated Cooper Kupp's 21-day practice window. So there's a chance he may play this Sunday. I don't know how effective he'll be coming off of that injury. It's a hamstring, so who knows how effective he'll really be. But to your point about Sean McVay, just the coaching staff versus coaching staff, right? look, there are two games for me that stand out for Nick Sirianni where I kind of looked at him different, and it kind of changed how I view him. It was the New Orleans game last season, and it was the Super Bowl. From those two games, it's led me to question him a little bit, and now I'm watching him like a hawk. You said something about the fact that in Sean McVay's staff, he has Raheem Morris, and he pretty much runs his defense entirely. I was talking to John McMullen on Football 24/7 last night. Make sure you guys go check us out. We do that about 3 times a week. I asked him about the defense, and one of the things he said that stood out to me was the fact that when Jonathan Gannon was here last year, even Sean Desai this year, they're running the defense the way Nick Sirianni wants them to run the defense. So that tells me
organizationally,
it's an organization / head coach decision on what they want that defense to look like. They're not bringing in pure defensive minds and telling them cook on defense, right? If you notice, they're constantly bringing in these young guys that don't really have too much weight to throw around in these negotiations. So I've always been of the mindset, I don't mind having a young and spry offensive mind on my coaching staff, but I always want someone experienced on the defensive side. And with the Philadelphia Eagles on defense, they're running that defense the way they're running that defense the way Nick Sirianni, Harry Roseman wants them to run that defense. And I don't know how successful that can be in the long term because everyone's running this style of defense. John McMullen hates this defensive concept. He hates everything about it. And I had to agree with him. So it's gonna be tough to see this passing defense go up against Matthew Stafford, who's ranked 2nd in the league in passing yards. I believe, I'll be honest, I think Matthew Stafford is going to throw for 300 yards. The Philadelphia Eagles on defense are just going to have to be opportunistic and maybe force some turnovers and get some key 3 and outs. But Matthew Stafford's going to move that ball.
You're right, Keon. Sirianni has no say when it comes to coaching because that's a Howie Roseman decision.
Exactly.
Because you know why? It makes it easier on the personnel. Like, you don't really believe that Nick Sirianni had anything to do with the signing of that defensive back yesterday.
Oh, no.
Nor did Sean Desai have anything to do with it. Howie signed him because you know why? It's a fundamental decision on how they're going to play defense. They believe in plug and play. Yeah. That's why. How many times do you see? Look at the difference that Vic Fangio has made in the first month of the season for the Miami Dolphins. Albeit, they go up to Buffalo and get their doorknobs knocked off, but still, Buffalo is an exceptional football team and playing great ball right now with Allen having to be coached a little bit better. But this is where, again, that I think the front office goes off their skis here a bit. Dude, you're not allowing these coaches to be creative. You're not allowing these guys okay, so check it out. You're not allowing Deshaun Desai to be creative, nor are you allowing really Jalen Hurts to continue his progression and how he plays the game. You're actually telling him to do less than you did a year ago by running less. Jalen Hurts is 275, 250, and 75. If you're going to land on that pod, you can't try to reinvent that pod because if you are, you're diminishing the guy's skill set. He's not a drop back quarterback. And I'll give you this stat again, Tone. It's not a Jalen Hurts issue. If Jalen Hurts was at 62% completion percentage and he wasn't accurate, I'd be like this. Okay, well, Hurts is not finding the barn door. Right. He can't even. Right. He's not. He's still accurate.
You said something interesting earlier. You said in the first segment, above all else, the reason they're 4-0 is because Jalen Hurts has been a calming force.
Calming.
And through all the coaching turnover, through all the sideline, antics, he's been able to keep this team focusing on the main thing, and that's winning games. It hasn't looked exactly how they want. And I would have loved to see much more clean wins than what we've seen. I would have loved for us to have been dominating our games the way San Francisco has. That's just the reality. But the reality also is that they've been going through some coaching turnover. Jalen Hurts, I think he's still trying to feel his way around the room when it comes to Brian Johnson and how he wants things to get done. I tell people all the time, right? His relationship with Brian Johnson is so overrated. I'm gonna tell you why. Because he wasn't calling plays for Jalen Hurts when he was 4 years old. You get what I mean? So I look at it like this. Yes, Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts, they have an off-field relationship because Jalen Hurts' dad coached Brian Johnson. Yeah, they have that. They know of each other. But they are in the process of nurturing and building something on the field. That's two different kind of relationships. Me and you, Sills, me and you can kick it, outside of the business world. But maybe if we work inside the same company, maybe we have two different ways of going about things, and maybe we can't work together, but we can go get a beer together, right? So but the point is, Jalen Hurts is in a situation where he's trying to fill himself around this new coordinator, and Brian Johnson is trying to fill himself himself around this new situation as the play caller. They're building this new chemistry, this new relationship, not as peers, but more so as offensive play caller and offensive signal caller. That's something new that they're trying to develop. That second half of the Washington game was the first time we saw any kind of continuity in the passing game, and you saw Jalen Hurts elevate his game to another level. I think this game against the Rams is going to be a shootout. I think Jalen Hurts is going to play his best game of the season.
You mentioned something there, and I'll tell you what, it's hard to find your place in an organization when you have people making decisions above the coaching staff. And when you have that, get this, they're winning games because people don't know their place in the organization right now. That includes the coordinator and the head coach. It's why he falls on the sword and saying that Brian Johnson's doing a fabulous job. No, he's not. That comes from Howie. He's trying to deflect, okay? That's how you know he has no say in this thing. Because anybody with their common sense and brains would know that a head coach would never allow some of the decision-makings that are going on. By the way, I'm not going to tell Jalen Hurts to pull it back. I'm just going to do this. Jalen, it's up to you how you play this game. Just be smart. I'm not going to go like this. Hey, when you see a guy come and slide, get down. We need you not to run as much or call less plays. That's why it's becoming predictable. So, Tone, when you tell me that he's not going to run as much and you're going to have him as a drop back guy back there, and you know the way that he's playing the ball, what they're going to do is they're going to drop 5 in the box, which they've done, and they've kept those games. Those big plays that they made to AJ, it was still a game. You didn't win that Washington game because you outplayed Washington. You won that game because Ron Rivera didn't go for the win at the end when he was the lesser team.
They got some breaks.
The 1 yard line. The 1 yard line. That was
got some breaks for sure.
Coaching decision. He said, and he took the lesser one, and I do believe what you're saying, the conservative one, that could have cost him his job more. If I'm Josh Harris, I would have much rather have had him go for it and lose that way than lose with a field goal in overtime on the road in Philly. I think that's a worse look.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. The way I see it, I'm always trying to, punch somebody in the mouth whenever I get a chance. So I feel like Ron Rivera had a golden opportunity to steal that game, and he just didn't do it. I'll be honest, man. The Eagles are 4-0, and I'm so grateful for it. And I don't devalue the record. The bottom line, you had to put the work in to get there. Those guys, put in their blood, sweat, and tears to get that 4-0 record, and there's more to come. I'm pretty sure of that. But the Philadelphia Eagles can easily be 2-2 right now. They've got some breaks in some of these games. For example,
they're in the front end of the schedule right now. Yeah. They're not into the meat of the schedule. Dallas is going to get into the meat of their schedule too here.
Right. So the way I see it, even though you're struggling a little bit, at least they're winning the games. I take that, and I hold that in a high regard because they can be struggling and losing, and that's not a good mix. The fact that they're winning and they're still trying to figure some things out, that's the signs of, in my opinion, a well-coached team. Despite the penalties, I think it's also the signs of a disciplined team and a team that's led by the right person in Jalen Hurts. The quarterback position, like I always say, is bigger than just your arm strength. To me, the quarterback position is 75% from the neck up, and I think Jalen Hurts got that part down pat. I think Jalen Hurts. I think we've yet to see the best Jalen Hurts. So again, I'm really looking forward to this Rams matchup because I think this is going to be a game where Jalen Hurts throws for 300+ yards. I think I said this to you yesterday. He's going to have like 3 passing touchdowns. I really think this is going to be the game for Jalen Hurts, and he's in LA. I think it's going to be exciting.
I don't think it's Jalen Hurts.
I don't either.
I think the coordinators.
I think they're holding him back. Honestly,
I do. I completely think they're holding him back. I think the attitude and the play calling, it's not creative. It's predictable.
Yeah.
You're going against coaches that know how to deal with
Think about this.
predictability.
Does Brian Johnson seem like he's calling plays confidently?
No.
And I don't feel conviction in his play
Does
call.
Jalen execute him confidently?
You know what I'm saying? I don't see the conviction in the offense.
Get this. The play calling doesn't have confidence. The player is not sure of the situation to call that play in. That's why he seems late sometimes. Hurts has played one half of really good ball, and the rest of them have been okay. That's for the first month of the season. But that's, to me, is how Brian Johnson has called the plays. Yeah. It has been so freaking conservative. It's almost like, and dude, people will go like this. Well, it's got to be a little with Hurts. I go, man, if he was not completing 7 of every 10 passes, I'd be like, you're right. The guy, is there some inaccuracy on deep throws? We see them, but a lot, I mean, and also something I brought up earlier too, Tone, about the defensive guys. Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, even Mahomes, all these $50 million guys, tell you what, these D coordinators are having a pretty good start to the season because there ain't one of those guys. Even Robert Saleh versus Allen in game 1, you're seeing these coordinators now catching up a little bit with these guys, and there's got to be some adjusting. You look at the guys that are playing well. Teams that run the ball, and Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, not a shit ton of film on them guys.
Right.
You're now getting a chance to get a little game film on. That's what Sean McDermott had on him. And you've got to adjust. And that's why when you got a training wheels OC doing this and you're telling him not to really beat Jalen Hurts, it just looks it's a step behind.
Yeah, let me tell you this real quick, right? Last season, and this is about Shane Steichen, right? This is about your point about the coordinators and specifically Brian Johnson. There was a in that Pittsburgh game, right? Last season, that's the Eagles dominated Pittsburgh from beginning to end. But there was a sequence where Shane Steichen called a bubble screen for Dallas Goedert, and the play was successful. And Zach Pascal, former wide receiver, we had him last year. Zach Pascal's job was to go out and block, right? So Zach Pascal leaked out. He blocked. Dallas Goedert caught the screen. He got it maybe 5 or 10 yards or whatever. Shane Steichen followed that up a little bit later in the game. Same exact play, but the difference was Dallas Goedert was the blocker, and Dallas Goedert faked like he was going to. Dallas Goedert faked like he was going to get a bubble screen. He faked like he was going to get the pass, and Zach Pascal faked like he was going to block for him, like he did in the previous play. Instead, Dallas Goedert ended up blocking. Zach Pascal cut up field for a wheel route, wide open touchdown. My point in bringing that up is, with Shane Steichen last year, you saw sequencing. You saw 1-2-1. You saw 1-2. 1-2-3. You saw combinations,
pacing.
You get what I mean. You saw pacing. You saw plays setting up the other play. This year, I have yet to see a sequence or a moment where I've seen
outside of the opening drive against New England.
Exactly. I have yet to see a play set up the other play. You know what I mean? I haven't seen any continuity or beautiful sequencing from Brian Johnson thus far. It just seems like he's just calling the play and telling them to make it happen. You know, as a coordinator, you have to coordinate. You know what I mean? You have to, you have to literally, throw some meat out there so them guys can bite on it, and then all of a sudden you pull it back, and then you give them the old sliding hand trick. You know what I mean? You have to be a magician out there. Shane Steichen was a magician out there with the play calling, and Brian Johnson right now he looks like the assistant. You know what I mean?
I'll just say this to you: bang, 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 bang. All right,
you gotta coordinate.
Look at that. Holy cow! Look at inside. He had the jacket and the belt, man. Dude, that's one of my favorite movies, man. Hey, Marcus, I hear you're. You gotta. Hey, real quick, Aaron Donald. What kind of damage do you think he does?
Aaron Donald?
Yeah.
Oh man. So we have a backup in there in Sewell Opeta. I like Sewell Opeta.
Yeah, I do too, but
here's the thing, right? The Rams, they run a 40 front. So you're not going to see Aaron Donald lined up over the nose, right? You're going to see
No.
Aaron Donald, in the one technique, you know what I'm saying? Maybe a 2-eye. You're going to see him doing all that.
He's going to come off that 3 technique on him.
And Aaron Donald, Aaron Donald's gonna, I think Aaron Donald leaves that game would be a second and a half. Like he's gonna, or maybe 2. He's gonna eat for sure.
Here's the problem. The reason I say that is because the Eagle running backs aren't very good in pass
pro, and it's making the offensive lineman look bad.
Yeah,
I got a question for you.
Look, they're not great, or they're not playing great as of now, but the backs have lowered the grade.
So let me ask you this really quickly, right? We got 4 games of tape on all the teams, and 4 games, in my opinion, you start to establish a trend, right? How do you believe, or how do you think the Philadelphia Eagles should enter this matchup with the Rams? How do you think they should approach it offensively?
Run the ball.
Run right at Donald, right? Run right at him. Because Donald can't stop the run. He's too small.
They can't. They're not good at the run. What I don't want to get into and having Brian, this is going to sound crazy. I don't want to put the ball in the hands of Brian Johnson in the passing game. I'd rather put the ball in the hands of Lane Johnson and Jalen in the running game. Because you know why? There's less turnover opportunities. You're not going to have a coordinator like Raheem, dude. Raheem's a great coach. And Raheem is going to see the predictability. It's not predictability. And everyone's being offended that I'm saying the offense is predictable. It's not Jalen. Brian Johnson's predictable.
Right.
He's the one that's being predictable right now. It's not creative. They're doing the same shit every week, dude.
Right. And look, I want to get a brother, a break, right? Because at the end of the day, he's only coordinated 4 games, and it's a 17-game season, and
why would you do that as an organization for a guy like Jalen Hurts who finished second in the NFL, not get him the best coordinator possible? I don't want my best friend. I want the best coordinator. Like you said, though, Tone, this is about putting the best personnel you possibly can. Player-wise, coaching-wise, why would you bring in 2 training wheel coaches on both sides of the ball when you're at the cusp of winning a Super Bowl? Is it because Howie really wants all that power in the building to be able to determine personnel, coaching changes, playing for personality? He doesn't want to lose what he lost with Brian Kelly. That's what this all comes down to, man. This comes down to all that right there. Okay, not Brian Kelly. What's his name?
Chip
Kelly.
And Doug as well. Doug challenged him too.
This comes down to that shit right there, because to me, again, you have Pro Bowl. You have 7 Pro Bowls on offense, and you hire a guy who's never coordinated down in his life because he's boys with Jalen and his dad.
Yeah, the thing is, I also think he was given the job because when you're in the Super Bowl, you kind of get last dibs on the pool of potential people that can take over for your coordinator job, right? A lot of those top guys were taken pretty early, so you can't really just.
And Frank got the job in Carolina because he was going to take and come back to Philly.
Right, I remember you had him on, and he said something. He said something to that nature. So it was like, I felt like they looked like they wanted to limit the amount of movement on that staff as much as they possibly could, because remember, they lost more than just Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. They lost a lot of people. So I felt like Howie Roseman looked at it like this: I don't want to have too much movement that I already had to deal with. Let me just elevate Brian Johnson. He's been a quarterback coach since 2021. It's not like he's a new guy. He's been here for the past 3 years. So let me elevate him, see what that looks like. As far as the defense goes, they lost everybody on defense except for Tracy Rocker. Everybody. So obviously Tracy Rocker is not going to be the head coach. So they had to outsource for that. But again, I go back to this point I made earlier. I want a guy with experience calling plays on defense, but at the same time, I'm willing to throw Sean the side bone because he's been doing, pretty much what's to be expected. But with all the injuries and losing all those guys. Brian Johnson, look, you got 4 games down so far. I need you to take it to another level. I'm not going to call for his job because I don't really like doing that. But I will say this: You need to elevate your game as the play caller, especially when you start going up against the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, the Chiefs, the Cowboys. You're going to have to coach your ass off. You know, all that training stuff has to go. We're trying to win a Super Bowl here. That's how I carry this, Big Sills. I'm not here to talk about NFC championships. I'm not here to talk about division titles. I'm not here to argue with Cowboys fans on Twitter. I don't get into that. Did we win or did we lose? Did we win the big game or did we lose the big game? You know, that's all I care about. And if we're not putting this team in position to do that, then what the hell are we doing it for?
How about this? Let me show you an example of what I just said. So Eric Bieniemy leaves Kansas City. It would have been easy for him just to hire and elevate somebody that Mahomes likes. What's he do? He goes and gets a former NFL Coach of the Year, who's a hell of a coordinator in Matt Nagy, and he brings him in for Mahomes. What do the Eagles do? They hired Jalen's boy. I mean, that, dude, what's troubling about it is there's no need for that, because the thing that cost you the Super Bowl was your ineptness coaching.
I agree.
Your decision-making and coaching in critical situations will cost you again in critical moments. We see it play out constantly. The play calling, the situational play calling, the decision-making that I even pointed out on the 3rd and 1. I tell you what, man, that's like coaching 101, where they gave the Commanders another opportunity to pick up the first down.
I was so pissed off.
Dropped the corners back and played pitch and catch on an easier play.
I was so pissed off. You know,
hey, if you're going to go 3rd and 1, press the receivers, right? Don't make it, or decline the penalty. Make it 4th and 1, and make the shittier team have to make the tougher decision.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, 1 opportunity versus 2 opportunities.
Right.
You gave them 2 opportunities.
And an easier play.
That was the
easier play because you came off the ball.
Right. And also on top of that, if you really was paying attention to that game, they were killing you on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5. So why would you put them in that down and distance where they've been comfortable there? Right? Like, force a guy like Ron Rivera, who clearly struggles at making tough decisions, make him make one. And then at that point, you play defense. You lean on your defensive line. So it's ridiculous. They pick and choose. Like, that play, like that moment told me a lot, because if you really trusted your defensive line, you would have took that 4th and 1. But clearly you had some weird reservation and you wanted to put your trust in your DBs who were getting cooked all day. And you play down and you play them off the line of scrimmage. So I'm willing to bet on the defensive line rather than my DBs in that game. 4th and 1 tells me you trust the D line. 3rd and 6 tells me you trust your DBs more. And that's where they made the mistake.
And Davis and Carter playing against the run, you're number 1 in the NFL in run defense.
Right.
And what you do is you give them another opportunity, drop the corners, play pitch and catch, an even easier play on a guy who was in his 5th start. I mean, that, again, people will go like this, but it's a collection of those.
Right.
That we've seen in the first month.
Yeah. The
coaching so far.
Coaching, in my opinion, the record is the record, but when I'm just looking at their coaching in the vacuum, I can't give them an A or a B. But like the record aside, because the players contribute to their record too. That's a team stat. But record aside, if I just look at the coaching performance in a vacuum with tunnel vision, I cannot give them a B. I got to give them like a C+, a C. That's the only reason. And again, maybe I'm a tough grader because at the end of the day, I hold people to high standards because I care. The moment I stop holding you to a high standard, that's when you should be concerned. My dad always told me, my parents always told me this. Start being concerned when I stop talking. Start being concerned when I'm not paying attention. When I'm on your ass, that means I believe in you. You get what I mean? When I'm not, hey, listen, we got some concerns here, baby boy.
Hey, man, I used to tell people this all the time when Jimmy Johnson would get on me. And finally, I just go like this to him, Tone. I go like this. Why are you always effing on me, man? He looked at me and he went right there in his office. Well, let me tell you something, big boy. When I stop talking shit to you and I stop helping you, that's when you got more of a concern.
Okay.
I just went like this. Holy shit, that was the end of that.
Hey, Dan, Senior Football asked us an interesting question. You know, I gave you a grade with the coaches in the vacuum, right? And I gave them a C. What would you give Jalen, not thinking about the coaches, not thinking about the record, just based on what we've seen from Jalen in and of itself, what grade would you give Jalen by himself?
B+.
B+? I'm good with that. I'd probably say B minus. But
I think he's winning in spite of them.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Okay, his talent is the only thing that is winning for them right now offensively. That's it. Without the coaches, B+. With the coaches, C.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Because I think the coaches, and again, the only reason that I would give the coaches a C also, maybe a C+, because they are 4-0. But I think that's fool's gold for them, and I think that's reality for Jalen. If that makes any kind of sense for you, wonderful for the players and Jalen Hurts. Those coaches, look, I'll tell you what, Buffalo looks better than them coaching than what the Eagles do. I mean,
yeah.
And let me throw one last thing at you here about Brian Johnson. Sure. Look how long it took Ken Dorsey to come around and for those guys to start seeing eye to eye.
Yeah.
That it took a year and 4 games
for
those guys to see eye to eye. So if anybody
and they still were winning games. That's the thing, right? They still were winning.
They went 13-3 last year. They were still winning games, but people were doing this shit. How come he looks like he walked back? And all of a sudden now you're looking at it like this. Say, look at this here, Tone. Check it out. Regular season in the last 2 years with Ken Dorsey, they're 16-4. They've won 16 to 20 ball games, and people were talking shit on Ken Dorsey. All of a sudden now, people are going like this. Holy shit, that team looks like the best offense in the NFL right now. Hey, maybe it takes 20 games for these guys to get on pace here.
And they almost had a moment in they did have a moment in week 1 where we all were like, hold on, wait, is this going to be one of those seasons again? And then they went back to the drawing board and they said, hold on, wait, we're not doing this. And all of a sudden, you saw them just flip the switch in week 2, week 3, week 4. It's really exciting to see that in Buffalo. But maybe you're right. Again, we're judging Brian Johnson off of a 4-game sample size in a 17-game season. That's a really small sample size.
They judged Nick after a 2-5 start and took the play calling away.
That's a good point. He was judged, head coach, the stakes are higher, but still, offensive coordinator, your job is to make sure the offense is prepared. The reality is, man, there's some pressure. I think they're all feeling it coming off the Super Bowl. I think they're feeling it, and Brian Johnson may be feeling it because he looks like I guess he looks at it like this. There's an expectation here, and he has to live up to that, and it's not easy. So overall, again, they're 4-0. It's going, they're winning. It's been a bumpy ride, but they're winning. I would much rather them be 4-0 than 1-3 or 2-2, especially with the record getting harder. This is the kind of, or with the schedule getting harder, this is the kind of schedule that you need to do your work early.
Absolutely.
At the very least, if you lose to Buffalo or if you lose to Miami, okay, all right, but at least you did your work early, and you still have a little bit of a leg up on other teams in your division. So. We'll see what happens. I think this game this Sunday, I'm really excited about it, man. Rams, Eagles, I think it's going to be a shootout for sure.
Yeah, the Eagles are in a wagon train right now, not a train. They're taking a wagon to get in a 4-0. Some of these other teams are taking a train. We'll see what happens. Jason Cole's going to be jumping aboard with us.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Tone. I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you, Big Sills, man. Thanks for the opportunity, as always,
Of course, man. You're getting better and better, dog. You're going to get your own show real soon. You're absolutely great. We appreciate him being part of the program now as we move forward with our 2 to 6 hours here, East Coast time. Jason Cole's going to join us also at 4:30. Hey, our good friends at Hooters, we're so proud to have them as the official sponsor of the National Football Show. Can't tell you how much we appreciate that. 7 locations in the Northeast area. Go to northeasthooters.com to find a location nearest you for you to be able to experience what I've been talking about for 40 years. By the way, the iconic Hooter girls, man, in the celebration of the 40 years, they'll take the food out to you. If you want to go, HootersToGo.com. Very simple, very easy. All you have to do is, again, go to HootersToGo.com. If you do go into any one of the places, like tomorrow night for Thursday Night Football, Tuesdays, buy 10 wings, get 10 boneless free. Wing Wednesdays, 40-year tradition, 1983, the year the place was founded by Ed Drotsky back in the day. All you can eat. Saturdays, kids eat for free. The great happy hours, go to northeasthooters.com. That's northeasthooters.com. And when you go into any one of the Hooters, do me a favor, you tell them Big Sil sent you.
football and Hooters, the perfect pair.